Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks again for joining us today. This is our second kind of official fantasy or Friday fantasy football forum, the quadruple F, whatever you want to call it, as far as me and Shawn from Apex. We are going to go over this week's fantasy matchups for you, let you know who you should be starting, who you should be benching, who some potential sleepers are, what the trends are, all that fun stuff. So we're going to hit that up again. Shawn, thank you so much for being with me again this week, and I hope that we can continue to do this all throughout the NFL season.
Absolutely, buddy. I look forward to it every week, and I know off there we talked about it. I can't thank you enough for having me on there. I feel like you and I kind of forged a nice relationship in the industry now, and we're just looking to grow it every week.
Yeah, and the only disappointing thing for me is that, last week when we did this, we were kind of on the same page as far as what our picks were for starters, sleepers, all that fun stuff. I don't get to read your stuff now until after we've done the show, because I don't want it to seem like, we're just picking the same people.
Yeah.
I'm worried about, he's going to say that probably, so I got to say this. So I go ahead and I read your stuff afterwards to make sure that
And I appreciate you doing that. But it makes for more genuineness between the two of us. We're kind of going off the numbers, and, it's good. It's okay. It makes for great TV for you and I to maybe disagree sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't see that we have anybody watching us just yet. What I'm trying to do on my Thursday show is to make sure that everybody is aware that we do have this fantasy show coming up on Friday. So hopefully we'll be able to grow that a little bit more. I just opened up an Instagram channel for Downfield Read as well. I need to have 150 people on there in order to stream live to that as well. So if you're watching this, or if you catch it later in a replay, go ahead and follow me on Instagram as well. We'll get this broadcast all over the place. We'll get you the fantasy information that you actually need from week to week, and we'll go from there.
Yep. And just to add to that, you can always find Jeff and I's information on LinkedIn. We piggyback off each other and always repost. And I know Jeff earlier put down about Fantasy Football Podcast, this show we're on right now, and then I'll repost it. So check us out there as well, too.
Yes, absolutely. So it's Friday morning. How did you feel about last night's game, the Cowboys and the Giants, 20-15 score?
I was thinking about this, and I was going to put a question out for you and then for our followers. If there's one player you wish you had more shares of, and I was going to ask you, for me, it's Malik Neighbors. I don't have enough shares of him. That was my big take watching the game, and I was going to post it to you today. If there's one you wish you had more shares of, who would that be for you?
Oh, man, for me, I'm watching the game last night, and I've only got two real leagues that I pay attention to. Number one, I've got my fantasy keeper league, or my dynasty league that we do with family and close friends. And then we've got the league that we're in with Fantasy Turf Wars. On my keeper league side, or my dynasty side, I have CeeDee Lamb.
Okay, so that's
who had a great night last night.
Yep.
And on the other side, I was going up against CeeDee Lamb. So it just kind of, that's what happens when you're in multiple leagues. But yeah, I wish I had, to answer your question, I wish I had more stock in CeeDee Lamb. I wish I would have went after him. Although I think he was gone by the number 5 pick that I had in Fantasy Turf Wars. I don't think that was going to happen. But yeah, CeeDee Lamb would be the guy, especially now. And what I think we're also seeing from the Dallas Cowboys is they've made a decision on who their running back is for the future, and which is great for me. I'm a little annoyed that it took so long, because in our Fantasy Turf Wars league, I actually drafted Ezekiel Elliott in like round 9 or 10 or whatever it was, and then I piggybacked it with the very next pick with Rico Dowdle. So now that we've got that out of the way, Rico Dowdle is going to be your guy coming up. Looks like he's going to get the majority of the carries. If you saw Zeke's face on the bench, he's not very happy about being there, but I think it's a good choice by Dallas to go with Rico at this point.
Yep. And I remember the first show I did with you, myself, and Dan, we talked about buying a backfield. Like if you can get the whole backfield, which you did, so you're good. And then God forbid something happens to Dowdle, you're covered.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same thing that I did with Atlanta as well. I took Bijan at number 5. I didn't draft him. He actually went a couple of picks before I was going to take him, but I was able to trade for him just in case something happened. I see that he was at least questionable earlier this week. So happy that I got that handcuff with Tyler Algier as well.
That's a super strategy that you did right there. So
So we've already got our first question right away before we get into our fantasy football stuff here. Do I trade DK for Higgins plus Waddell 12-team full PPR?
Who do they want to get rid of?
DK Metcalf.
Okay, for Waddle and
for T. Higgins.
Yeah, see, and we talked about this on our last show.
Yeah,
I'm worried about the 1 for 2 or 2 for 1 right now. And actually, it's funny he asked that. In my DFS slate that I wrote up, I have Waddle in there, and then I did a single game slate with the Titans and Dolphins. I have Waddle as a fade or a sit. I mean, with the quarterback situation right now, we'll just go ahead and assume that Tua is coming back, but I'm not taking on any Waddle shares right now, and I think DK he's the clear alpha. He gets the red zone targets. I'm not giving him up, and Geno's obviously, he's shown himself to be a heck of a quarterback, and right now he's QB 13, so he's right there on the fringe one. So I'm not getting rid of Metcalf. What do you think, Jeff?
No, I completely agree with you. And when you look at, I watch all the shows too. So Dan Orlovsky actually had Geno Smith in his top 5 for quarterbacks as far as their play right now. So you can look at it and say, hey, he's got a lot of weapons to throw to. There's Lockett, there's JSN, which everybody is waiting for him to take off. But for T. Higgins and Waddle, I don't like that. I don't like the Waddle situation until they get their quarterback figured out, which I think sooner than later is going to end up being Tyler Huntley. I think this might be his last week there. T. Higgins, he's only been back for 1 game. I question the durability, but you're trading 2 inferior wide receivers for 1 great one that you could start every week.
Right.
DK is still the number 1
absolutely
in Seattle. So you're trading a number 1 for 2 number 2s.
Yep.
Unless you've got wide receiver injury issues.
Yes.
If you had Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuels and Jordan Addison or some damn thing, maybe that makes sense for you. But straight up without any other information about how your team is.
Yeah. I mean, in essence, right now, Jeff, I think you and I can agree. If we close our eyes, you're basically trading T. Higgins for DK Metcalf. In essence, because I'm discounting Waddle right now. Yep. I mean, so I think we both say keep Metcalf.
Yep, keep Metcalf for sure. All right, before we get too many more questions coming up here, let's go ahead. I'm going to just kind of recap. We're going to get into quarterbacks first.
Yep,
as far as start, sit, and sleep. Last week, the advice that I had given, I think my top quarterbacks to start here were Mahomes, Jackson, and Murray. And not bad overall. Jackson ended up being the 4th highest scorer. Murray was 17. Mahomes was 16. So that's where I was a little bit more favorable on the sit side of it when I said to sit Herbert, who only ended up with 9, and Trevor Lawrence, who only ended up with 9.5. So I think we were pretty decent there. Yep. Neither of my sleepers woke up, though. They were still sleeping with Jared Goff and Derek Carr. Neither one of them finished.
Yeah, and I know I had in my start column, I had Murray as my start. And we talked about the high implied team total, and he started off well. We got off to a good start in that game. And then it just kind of fizzled out. But, we can only we're putting ourselves out there and we'll just go with what the data says. And, I'm just shocked. I actually thought that was set up nicely for that back and forth, and it just kind of fizzled out.
Yep. I agree with you. Do you want to start with your picks for quarterback this week?
Yeah. So on my DFS main slate that I write for Total Apex Sports, for my stardoms, Jeff, for quarterback, I've got the main article, I've got Jaden Daniels, and I chose Jaden Daniels. I'm speaking a little bit more on the DFS side. He was cost efficient at 8,200 on FanDuel. I debated to go Josh Allen. I like to pay up at quarterback, but I took Daniels because he's always set up to me to chase points because there's a poor secondary and obviously the rushing upside. And then when I go down in my recommended, though, in my lock pick, though, I've got Josh Allen, so I'll highlight him. Again, when I do my lock, I want the high floor.
Yeah.
Who else but Allen for the high floor? He's QB1 after 3 weeks. And then for stacks, I've got Murray Harrison and Allen Shakur. I think Shakur is the number 1 wideout for the Bills, but those are my stacks. So Murray, Allen, and Jaden Daniels for me.
Yeah.
and my top,
Murray, Allen,
you know,
and
my
Jaden Daniels.
favorites.
This is funny because this is what I've got. My number one guy is Jaden Daniels,
Mm-hmm.
just right out the gate. 28 fantasy points last week. That was second. That was the second time this year that he actually hit 28 points. So it's not like it's a fluke type of thing that came from Jaden Daniels. The Cardinals have a mid defense, but I think Daniels is starting to find a rhythm. At least it looks like from back in his college days when he threw 40 touchdowns. A couple of those passes were, I don't know if you want to say it was extremely lucky or if they were just extremely good. They were on a dime. I mean, they were perfect passes, and he's starting to look like he is getting away from the run, but the dude can still run. So
exactly,
that game, you've got the upside of getting a rushing touchdown in there. Not only that, Eckler's out. So now you're down to one running back and Jaden Daniels. So I love him versus Arizona. My second one was Kyler Murray. I'm doubling down on Kyler Murray. I said it last week.
Can't go wrong
very well. But again, it's the same game, right? Going up against Washington. Look what Cincinnati did and Joe Burrow did last week against him or against them. I think Kyler Murray is a no-brainer. Washington, who's given up the third most amount of points, the second most amount of passing yards. And Murray hasn't been bad. 14 points, 28 points, 15 points. So it's like you're almost guaranteed 15, which is a ceiling for some of these quarterbacks, but he can get you that 25. And I think that's what he's going to get closer to this week. My third one, though, is Joe Burrow. And I'm going to go against every talking head that's out there, the Colin Cowards, the Nick Wrights, the Shannon Sharps, who are saying, oh, this loss was completely on Joe Burrow. What a bunch of fluff. I don't believe that for a second. When you're putting up 33 points, you've passed for 3 touchdowns. You haven't thrown an interception. You've got a passer rating of 125. That's not on him. It's the fact that their defense is bad, and because their defense is bad, they're going to have to pass. So Cincinnati is Joe Burrow is my third one there. He's currently 11th in fantasy points after his disastrous start where he had 5 points in week 1. But he's really found his rhythm. 17 points and then 25 points in the last 2 weeks. He's got T back. So that's good. And they're in a dire situation to win. And they're going up against the Carolina Panthers defense that isn't good.
And to show how right on you are, Jeff, Jaden Daniels is QB3 through 3 weeks. And Burrow is QB11 with 5 touchdowns and no picks and 107.5 QB rating. And you saw with T coming back, your Joe Burrow shares took off because you got to focus on a couple guys. So you're right on. I'm right with you on all that.
Perfect. We got a question from Joseph. Joseph, hang with us real quick until we finish the quarterback segment here. It won't take too much longer, and then we'll get to your question. My sit quarterbacks for this week. I've got Jared Goff. I said he was going to be a sleeper last week. I think he's kind of showing us what he's really made of here. Too many weapons. They seem to be playing it more safe than they are an offensive juggernaut at this point. So I've got Goff against Seattle. It's number 1 passing defense. They're only giving up about 14 points per game. And like I said, Goff hasn't been great. 11.5 points, 9 points, 14.5. Again, one of those guys where 15 might be the ceiling. And those are against easier defenses. So Goff is my first sit. Don't get folded up in the Bo Nix hype. He had a great week last week. If you're thinking about playing him against the Jets, I would ill-advise against that. He did put up 19.5 against Tampa Bay last week, which nobody thought that they'd see coming. But I would take a look at Bo Nix maybe for week 5, maybe look 1 week ahead. If you've got a quarterback that's on bye for week 5, Bo Nix and his matchup there, maybe wait to see what he does this week, but I would sit him for this week. And then I would also sit Brock Purdy. And I've always been high on Brock Purdy. He's going up against New England this week. Purdy is currently 12th in fantasy points for quarterbacks. He's put up 10.5, 14, 26 last week against the terrible Rams defense. I don't think he's going to do that again. So Purdy, don't know if Debo is coming back. That's a big question as well. How is Kittle? How is Williams at the left tackle spot? For now, I would say let's sit on Purdy going up against New England because if they do get a lead, they're going to run the ball anyway.
Just to add to that, Jeff, I did see that Debo was in pads and he did have a limited practice. Yeah. I don't know if he'll play this week. It might just be to ramp him up, and he may sit this week, or he should be back next week based on the tea leaves. But I got a couple sits. One, and that was I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I want to ask you this because of Fantasy Turf War. One of my takes I had on the week three, my week 3 wrap up. That when I was on 4th and Goal with Total Apex Sports is, and I'm going to ask you too, Jeff, because I know you'll be on this. Is Deshaun Watson ever going to be a QB1 again? That was one of my questions. So he would be a sit for me. He had a great matchup last week against the Giants. He's got another good one this week.
Mm-hmm.
I have him as a fade in my single DFS article I wrote this week in the Browns-Raiders game. And my other one was Anthony Richardson. You're probably not sitting him. He was QB5, I think, in preseason. Right now, he's QB19, but against the Steelers defense, I mean, if you drafted him, you got to start him. I get it. He was a fade for me. I did a single game write-up DFS for Steelers Colts. So those are my 2. I guess I'd have him more of as a fade, Jeff, than a sit, but temper expectations. There was some life for Watson last week because he did finally target his number 1. He brought Cooper back to life.
Yep.
But, I mean, I just saw this week, both tackles are out again this week, Conklin and Wills. He's running for his life. He ran for his life last week. And like in fantasy turf war, we lose points for sacks. So he murdered me last week. I think he had 17 in normal, but in negative points, he gave me 6.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, do you think he's ever getting back to, like, you remember this guy was like monster QB1 numbers. What do you think? I mean, for me, he's a fade or a sit with Richardson this week.
Yeah. It's funny because I kept on going back to him because the matchup seems favorable going against the Raiders.
Absolutely.
Seeing what they did. But then whenever who are the Raiders playing this week? Oh, they're playing the Browns. Now forget it. Exactly. Jerome Ford didn't do anything last week. And it wasn't because the Giants defense was that great.
No, he was set up to do well again last week, Ford.
Right. So, no, I don't like Deshaun Watson as a person or a football player at this point. I just don't think that he is a quarterback 1 at this point. If you had him on your bench, I don't even know if I'd keep him on my bench as a backup play, maybe in favorable matchups, because we've already seen what happens. And if he doesn't do well again this week against Las Vegas, you might as well just get rid of him completely because he looks slow. He looks like he doesn't want to be there. He looks like he can't read the defense. Maybe when Njoku comes back, that'll give him an outlet for some short passes, but I'm just not seeing it with him at this point.
Yeah. I know. And I was going to ask you, because we're not in the same division, so there's no conflict. I've got Fields to back him up. My hesitation to use Fields is because I have Harris. Ooh, so it's kind of a negative correlation with quarterback, running back. So I was going to ride Watson one more week, but I am 0-3. So I was going to ask you, what do you think? Because we're not in the same division. I figure I'm ready to just say whatever Jeff says, I'm about to roll with it.
Yeah, Justin Fields, they're playing Indianapolis. I think Indy's got a good defense.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And Justin Fields hasn't shown me enough to really spark anything as far as starting him. Is he worse than Jared Goff at this point? No, not really. Has he thrown any picks? I don't think he has.
Yeah, he's been okay. Well, last week he had 18 fantasy points, I believe, which is the best, but that was buoyed by he's got 2 touchdowns, 1 pick on the year, but he had the rushing touchdown that saved him last week, but he's at 6.9 yards per attempt. That's mediocre. Mm-hmm. Good completion percentage of 73%. The one positive last week that could open up his numbers is he started to hit Freiermuth over the middle. So that's going to loosen up. He hit the long touchdown to Austin. So if he can start hitting the ancillary pieces, that's going to open up his main weapon, which we all know is Pickens. But I don't know. I guess I might ride Watson one more week. He's got a good matchup on paper. But I mean, no tackles again, no Njoku again.
I think if you need a big number, if that's what you're playing for, if you are already behind after last night or whatever, if you need a big number, I think that's where Deshaun Watson is going to potentially get you a big number. But the peaks and valleys are so tremendous with him that he could give you a 5. He could give you a 25. I think he's more likely to get you a 5. But again, that favorable matchup with the Raiders this week, if you're looking for big points, I'd go Watson. If you're comfortable with your team and you can settle for 13 to 15 points, I think that's what Justin Fields gets you.
Yeah. And if I didn't have Najee Harris, it'd be easy for me. But, if Harris goes off, the chances are the quarterback didn't.
Yeah, and we'll get to Harris because I think he's on his uptick. at this point. Now,
And no Warren again, too.
Exactly. Yep. My sleepers for this week are, believe it or not, and I don't know if you can qualify him as a sleeper, but he's outside of the top 12. So this is what I qualify as a sleeper. If you're not in the top 12 for fantasy points, you're going to be considered a sleeper in my mind. So I've got 3 sleepers as well. CJ Stroud, who's currently number 16 in fantasy points for quarterbacks. I think he's a sleeper this week. Obviously, you saw what Buffalo did with Jacksonville last week. I think this might be a bounce back game from what they did in Minnesota. They have a terrible defense in Jacksonville, 3rd most passing yards allowed, 4th most points allowed. So CJ Stroud is a no-brainer. I don't think anybody was going to bench him anyway, but he's a sleeper to have a big day this weekend. Number 2 is Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton showed some life into the Carolina Panthers. They're playing in Carolina. I think that gives them another boost. And they're also playing against Cincinnati, who also has a very bad passing defense at this point in time. And I also think it's funny, you have Dalton back there. Keep in mind who he used to play for. This is a little bit of a grudge match.
Yes,
he used to play for Cincinnati. So I think he's going to have a point to prove, not just with having a 1-2 Carolina Panthers team, being the backup for the last year plus, but also going against Cincinnati. So look out for that one. And then I've got, as my super sleeper here, Kirk Cousins against New Orleans. New Orleans is going to put up a lot of points. You have to expect that Atlanta is going to put up a lot of points. Drake London looks like he's an actual player again. Kyle Pitts not putting up great numbers, but he's still there. And they haven't gotten Bijan off to a great start at this point in time either. So super sleeper if you're looking for someone, Kirk Cousins.
For me, I'll give you one that I like, and that is based on the tea leaves I'm seeing is Caleb Williams. I like the fact that they basically punt. They can't run the ball. I did see that Roshan Johnson's basically going to get the crack at this week. He's going to get more carries. He's about to see what he can do. I mean, that guy was behind Bijan Robinson. If he's anywhere else, he's probably was like with a high draft cap, big time draft capital with Texas. But he had 52 passes, I think, last week. So, and he's facing the Rams defense, which isn't like, lights out against the pass. They are middle of the pack. So for my one, I would say Caleb Williams. And I actually picked up Caleb Williams in one of my leagues, and I'm actually going to start him this week. So I'm right there with you. The Rams defense is actually, I checked that, they are 4th and against the pass. So, 4th overall defense. But I like the fact that the volume play with Williams, because they haven't shown they can run the ball. And I think he played one of his better games. They got Rome Odunze involved last week, so that's one
Keenan
for
Allen
me.
coming back. That could be a big
Keenan
factor
Allen.
too.
Yep.
So there
Cole
you go.
Kmet had a great week last week.
He sure did.
So that's one for me.
All right. Let's go to some more questions here. We've got Joseph Park. Joseph, thanks for chiming in here. Start sit, Elijah Higgins or Hunter Henry? I guess if you have to start one, if you have to sit one.
Elijah Higgins. See, that's a tight end question, right?
Yep. Tight ends, which has been the most beautiful position in fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, let's see here.
I'm going to fast forward here a little bit to our tight ends because we usually don't go to that quickly.
Yeah.
Hunter Henry is one of my sits.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't like him against San Francisco. It's not a very good matchup, and he's questionable with an ankle anyway. So I wouldn't go with Hunter Henry.
The only way, I mean, I think and it's funny, in an article I wrote on the betting side of Apex, I've got Total Apex. I took in my parlay, one of my picks was the Niners in a bounce back spot, and I think they're going to put it to them. I mean, if May starts, he hasn't looked great. I mean, I can't recommend any Patriots, outside, I think Douglas kind of appeared as the wideout, as the number one option for the wideouts. But I mean, Henry's tight end 9, but most of that, Jeff, check me if I'm wrong, it's based off of 1 week.
Yeah, it really was. I think I had him number 10 even. So
yeah.
So yeah, Hunter Henry, I had him number 10 overall. So not a great matchup if you can find someone else.
No. You can't feel good about starting anybody from the Pats, actually.
No. Hang around for our sleepers, though.
Yeah.
When we talk about that, there might be somebody there that you can pick up, Joseph. So definitely do that. Next question, George C. Do I trade Nico Collins and a smaller piece for Justin Jefferson. My first thought is, what is the smaller piece?
Yeah.
And how bad is your
You
team?
have to have a better piece because Collins is actually, if I remember, I just saw him pop up on the injury report too, Jeff.
Yeah.
So you're going to probably have to. You're not going to get, if you do, you can get Collins for Jefferson straight up. Obviously, you can, but I don't. You're probably adding more than a small piece to get Jefferson. So if you can get him, go ahead. I mean, someone may do it, but.
Yeah, and one of those players, I'm not going to tell you who, just because I want to be this guy, but George, one of those guys is one of my top wide receivers play for this week, so you might want to hang around for that. But yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about who that smaller piece is before I can actually make
for us to give you a better take on that.
Aiden Tobin, since Dante Adams is killing me, should I pick up Trey Tucker in a 14-man? Well, yeah, I'd say at this point you should, because Devontae Adams he's
out.
I believe
this week. Absolutely. And Tucker broke out somewhat last week, so that's for sure. Go get him right now and put him in there because they can't throw every pass to Brock Bowers. So
or Jacoby Myers. So those are the only two guys that they've got.
Tucker's got big time upside too.
Yeah, I would definitely pick up Trey Tucker,
absolutely,
especially in a 14-man league. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go do that right now. Stop watching us. I give you permission.
Yeah, go get it right now.
Go get him. And then one more question: Ramondre or Akers? My first thought is, who else? Who else you got? Because Ramondre put up, what,
you have to be desperate.
And Akers put up maybe 3.
Yeah, I mean Akers maybe this week. I think I saw, if I remember correctly, Jeff. I always try to check the practice reports before you and I go on. I do believe that. If you just give me a second, I do believe that Mixon was out there today.
Okay. Well, then they still got Dameon Pierce too. So it's like Akers is the main guy or the second guy.
Ramondre, at least every week is at least a volume play for you. So, and that offense is not great, but I'm not giving up Ramondre for Akers. Because you can't even say if you're desperate, because you don't know now if you trade for Akers, is he playing? Is he going to start this week? So I would say no.
I think you said. Well, I think he was kind of going between. Do I start Ramondre? Or do I start Akers? Just based on the volume, like you said, I would go Ramondre.
Ramondre, yes.
I wouldn't expect anything from him because they're playing San Fran, and if San Fran can beat the San Fran of old, maybe they get Debo back. I guess he's back at practice. They might be getting Kittle back. So. Yep. They could really run up the score if the New England defense doesn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes Ramondre.
If they get a negative game script, he probably gets, he could get 4 or 5 catches, but I don't know if it's not an upside play. It's more of a floor play and a low floor.
I would pass on both of them for even a flex spot.
Hopefully you have better. I'm hoping that this person has better options.
Yep. And then we've got Gordon, who's asking Mixon and Pierce are both out. So he answered our question.
Okay.
I thought they were questionable maybe, but
I did not see that Mixon was declared out already. So that's not come up in my feed yet that he's out. And I got the most recent feed here, but not to say that gentleman's wrong, but I have not seen where Mixon's out yet, because usually though, if he was out there, I saw him out there as limited. And it's
funny. I still got questionable for both of them as of the latest update that I had 3 hours ago. Mixon was present for practice Friday.
Yes, same thing I saw. Yes, sir.
So I haven't seen any other updates there. Same thing with Pierce. Actually, Pierce wasn't present for the initial portion of Friday. You could probably count him out, but the big question is going to be if Mixon is there or not.
Yeah, Friday's the key. If they don't practice on Friday, it's a good chance they're going to be out.
Yep. So if Mixon plays, definitely not Akers. If Mixon is out and Akers is the number 1 guy, they got an easy matchup this week.
Yeah.
Keep your eye on that for tomorrow, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. I think we were done with the quarterback situation. Let's head over to the running back room real quick. Just as a reminder, we had last week, some of my must starts were Jordan Mason. Didn't do as well as I thought. He was 25th overall in points with 10. I did say Derrick Henry, who finished number 3. Overall, he had 30 points. What a big game for him.
Yeah, kudos to you, Jeff. You nailed that game.
Oh, yeah. James Cook, number 11, with 16.5 points. And then Alvin Kamara all pretty much, in my mind, were kind of no-brainers. But Kamara was number 15, had a lower day than usual on there. As far as the must-sits, I said stay away from the Dallas backfield. And I'm not talking about Thursday now. Last night is a completely different story. I said stay away from the Cowboys backfield in week 3. Ezekiel Elliott had 1.7, and Rico had 7 points. So if you had anybody, if you listened to me there, they shouldn't have been in your active roster. Same thing with James Conner. I said stay away from James Conner. He finished with 3 points. And Joe Mixon, Cam Akers, that situation, he finished number 26 overall. That falls out of the 2 running back. Top 24 is usually what you're looking for. At least they're 9.4 points. So my sleepers didn't do much. Zamir White was a no-show. DeAndre Swift, we kind of talked about. He's not even going to be the starter maybe this week. And then Jerome Ford showed up with 8.5. Decent if you were desperate. But that's what I had for last week.
Yep. For me, for this week, for starts in my article, my main slate, I did have Jerome Ford. A couple upside is Ford kind of got back to, he kind of got back to volume last week with the 13 carries and the 79% snap share. This is, for me, he's playing a rush defense in the Raiders, allowing 152.7 rush yards a game. So I like him. Before we came on the show, Jalen Warren's declared out. So my other start for me would be Najee Harris. The Steelers, with Arthur Smith, they're going to try to run the ball. That's a big one. And then for sits, for me at the running back side, I talked about this on 4th and goal, the Broncos backfield. It's a mystery to me. Normally you could count on 2 running backs in that Peyton offense. You've got the scat back, the Darren Sproles, the Reggie Bush, or the big back like the Deuce McAllister, Mark Ingram. And then last week, Williams fumbled, and, Tyler Badel came in the equation. So now you got 3 people you got to pick from. And then the Chiefs backfield, Steele had 17 for 72, but now you've got an most likely active Kareem Hunt. Randy Reed said he'll be in there. I guess those 2 backfields are a stay away from me because, you might hit on them, but it's a straight guess.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I love the Tyler Batty. I was watching him play because he used to actually be he was on the Ravens for maybe 1 year as a number 3 running back or something like that, or he made the practice squad. Tyler Batty, but the announcer kept calling him Tyler Bidet.
Okay.
He's not a toilet. His last name is Batty, B-A-D-I-E. And it wouldn't surprise me if he took over as well as he played last week. It wouldn't surprise me if he actually took over some of the carries. I don't know what the problem is with the Denver backfield there. That's crazy, but I agree with you that just stay away from it.
Just stay away. And the Chiefs is about to get even more muddier if Hunt comes in.
Boy, I hope not, because I picked up Carson Steele and he did pretty well for me last week.
Excellent.
He had 8 or 9 points or whatever it was.
Yeah.
He was denied at the goal line once or twice, which it would have made a real big day for him. I'm hoping
he got the touches, 17 for 73, I think he was. So
he was over Paraji. So
yep.
I thought that was a good one. So anyway, my starts for the week, I'm going to go with some very obvious ones, and this is what I've done here now for running backs and for wide receivers, because I usually list 6.
Okay.
Because there's always no-brainers in there, right? Like, oh, well, no kidding, I'm going to start Saquon Barkley.
Exactly.
So, but my top 3 that I think are going to perform at best here, or at that upper echelon, are going to be who I just mentioned, Saquon Barkley at Tampa Bay. He's number 1 overall. There's no reason, and the matchup is beautiful with Tampa Bay too. So there's no reason to not play him. Number 2 is Kyren Williams. We saw what he did last week, 3 touchdowns. And really for both of these guys, they're getting the touches in the backfield and they're getting the catches as well. Kyren Williams going up against Chicago, I think that they could probably run that up a little bit as well. And he's going to get the workload at the goal line. And then number 3 is Breece Hall against Denver. I don't think that's going to be much of a game. Breece Hall and maybe even Braylon Allen's going to get in there again because he seems to get his fair share of touches. So that's, if you don't have him, go ahead and pick him up, because if something happens to Breece Hall, man, Braylon Allen's going to, he's going
to the moon.
A lot. He's fast. He's big. He can jump. I mean, this kid is good.
Yeah.
So the guys that are outside the top 12 that you would go, oh, well, no kidding, I'm going to start these. I'm looking at number 16 right now in fantasy points for running backs is Brian Robinson, Jr. with Washington versus Arizona. And we mentioned it before. No Eckler to split time with now. And I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. So you've got Brian Robinson there. He's currently number 16. Currently at number 19, the guy that killed me last week, Zach Moss at Carolina. He's got Carolina has given up the 6th most rushing yards. They're worst in points allowed. And fun little side fact, I was leading last week in our fantasy turf wars up until 40 seconds in that last game. When Zach Moss crossed that goal line, I lost by 3. Broke my heart. So 1 and 2. Thank you so much. Another close loss for me.
Yeah.
And then my third guy outside of the top 12 that you should sit. And this was a guy who I mentioned him last week. Tony Pollard. I'm going to double down on him. I think I had him as a start for last week. Tony Pollard versus Miami. I think he's going to have a bounce back week because you don't really know what the hell is going on in Miami.
No.
You know what you got in Tennessee there, and it's not a good passing game. So I think Tony Pollard comes back, and those are kind of my 6 starts for the week.
Yep, I like all those. I had one more, Jeff, that I actually forgot to mention, and I mean he's not a sleeper, but if you look at the line at 10 points, Mason for San Francisco should be based on the game script of the 10-point spread. He should second half be in line for a lot of touches. So I like Mason. I wouldn't call him a sleeper because he's on the 49ers, but right now he's outside our top 12. He's at 4. I have him as RB 14 in PPR. So that's somebody, if you picked him up, it's nice because you're basically got a nice every week starter. Heck yeah. Yep.
I love that pickup too. My sits for week 4, and I'm going to do kind of the same thing, but in reverse order. These are guys, I've got 6 sit running backs for this week. The first 3 are guys that you should really think hard about sitting. I'm not saying to sit them because once I say the name, you're going to be like, I can't sit this guy. Just think about it. Look at what the matchup is. See if you've got any other options there. But number 1 is Jonathan Taylor versus Pittsburgh. They've given up they've given up the least amount of points, and they're 3rd against the run. And if Pittsburgh comes out with the game plan to shut down the run game and make Anthony Richardson beat us, which I don't think he can, that would be the smart defensive move. I don't think Jonathan Taylor has a very good day. So think about that one. Jonathan Taylor currently number 8 for running backs in fantasy points. Number 9, Zach Charbonnet versus Detroit. Detroit, 9th fewest points given up, 4th best team versus the run. And you've got a questionable Walker coming back. As far as I thought I saw, Kenneth Walker might be coming back. He might be splitting time. So think about that one. Make the decision on Saturday. And then my third one is J.K. Dobbins. J.K. is currently number 13, going against Kansas City. Where's Herbert? Is Herbert going to play? How's the ankle? What's going on there? But they're also going against Kansas City. So you know at some point in time they're going to get screwed. Dobbins has 21.5 points in week 1, 19.5 in week 2, 7 last week. It's a downward trend. I'd be careful with him this week. My for sure sits, my definite sits, Zamir White, forget about him. If anything, go out and pick up Alexander Madison. He might be the guy in the future there. Zamir White has proven that he can't do a damn thing. 3.5 points, 5.5 points, 3.5 points. They don't even know who their quarterback is probably going to be in the future coming up too. So you got a lot of disarray going on in Las Vegas. We mentioned him before, Ramondre Stevenson, 0.3 points last week. The quarterback play is abysmal there. San Fran should be able to run up the score, and that's why Ramondre should be an afterthought. And then Josh Jacobs, he's number 29 right now in fantasy points, going up against Minnesota. But his first 3 weeks of the year, 11.5 points, 13, and then 5.5 last week. I think you really have to think about him going up against that Minnesota defense that is second in points allowed and second in rushing yards allowed. Those are my sits.
I'm with you on that. Like, to back up all those great points, Minnesota, it's one of my leagues. They're the top-ranked defense, fantasy-wise. You spoke about the Steelers and the Lions and those sits. The Steelers are tied for second in rush defense, like you said, giving up 71 points a game. So those Taylor sit is a good one. And the Lions they're 4th at 76.7 points per game. So those are I'm with you on every single one of those. Those are all great sits. That you're right on with that.
And I would say if you're looking for someone who could be a potential, here's my sleepers, we'll get into this. They're not in the top 12. That's kind of my rule for picking up a sleeper. How about Chuba Hubbard? He's currently number 21 overall versus Cincinnati. They've given up the 8th most rushing yards, 8th most points. If Dalton can get out to a good lead again like they did in Las Vegas, then you're going to see a heavy dose of Chuba Hubbard.
Yep.
So he could be a potential sleeper. Number 2, I said not to play him last week, and I was correct. I'm saying he's a potential sleeper this week. James Conner, currently number 18 overall for fantasy points running backs wise, going up against Washington, which should be a very high scoring game. And then 3, what we talked about before was Najee Harris versus Indianapolis. They've given up the 2nd most rushing yards. He's running back number 32 right now. So he's definitely a sleeper. No Jalen Warren, like you said before.
Yes.
It's going to be all going through him without a doubt. I think he could put up some big numbers. And then I have one super sleeper. We talked about him too. Rashad Johnson in Chicago. Doesn't sound like DeAndre Swift is going to be the main guy back there. He has not done anything. And I think that they have a favorable matchup as well going against the Rams. Let's give it a shot. But again, super sleeper. Got to kind of wait and see
I
a
picked
little
him
bit
up.
on him. But if you're desperate, go for it.
Yes. In a deep league like our fantasy turf war, a 16-team league, I picked up Johnson and probably going to start him because obviously with a 16-team, it gets, thin real quick. He's supposed to get, all of the, supposed to get the opportunity to take the, the bull by the horns, as they say. So I'm with you on that one. And then you mentioned Chuba. Go ahead, get all you can out of Chuba before Brooks comes back.
Exactly.
And then you might, if he has another good week, you might sell high. But Dalton pumped some serious life into that offense, and I have some Deontay Johnson shares, and that was big time for me last week. I mean, he was nothing, and all of a sudden, he blew up last week. So it just goes to show you don't have to be. You just need some competent quarterback play for the ancillary pieces to pop off.
Yeah, and it's funny, there's so many different, I've run into people that, they don't understand fantasy football. Oh, it's just, people and you're making it. I think it's really fun. It's interesting. I get to use my analytical experience a little bit here and the statistics.
Yes.
With Deontay Johnson, I could not have stayed far enough away from him in any of my drafts. As long as Bryce Young was going to be back there, I knew he wasn't going to do anything. If you were smart enough to buy low on Deontay Johnson within the first couple of weeks, kudos to you, because now Deontay Johnson is looking like he's putting up the points that people thought he was going to do in the beginning of the year. So if you hop on the Deontay Johnson train just to kind of stash him away to see what was going to happen, kudos, man. You did a good job. Yeah,
and they brought him over to be the wide receiver 1, and last week he was.
Yeah, for
sure. Think of it this way, Jeff. Are you and I talking about, or is anybody talking about the Panthers, if not for fantasy football or DFS? Probably not.
Yeah, not really. Adam Thielen is also, I think he's either questionable or out. He had a hamstring injury, so that just makes his value even higher.
Yes.
Getting into a couple more questions. It looks like we've got some running back questions in here. 12-team full PPR. My running backs are Jahmyr Gibbs, Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Chuba Hubbard. My wide receivers are Jamar Chase, Deontay Johnson. I'm guessing Jameson Williams, Xavier Worthy. This is a lot. Odunze and Hopkins. Do I trade Chuba in return for JSN? If you can hold off on that trade for one more week, I would.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty set at wide receiver. If he was desperate, you could sell high in Chuba, but right now Chuba's, he's giving you, like last week, he was an RB1. So it depends what else you have. I'm with you. Hold off and use him as long as you can before you get rid of him.
Yeah, because I like Gibbs. I've got him in my dynasty league. I like Kamara. Obviously, he's putting up big points. We kind of just talked about I'm not huge on Jacobs, especially this week. He hasn't been producing like people thought he was going to. So really, your third best running back is Chuba Hubbard. And you might not want to trade him away so quickly for a wide receiver that, to your point, Shawn, it doesn't look like you really need. I mean,
No.
you've got Jamar Chase. I mean, you got a couple of
And didn't he
numbers
say
that should be able to flex in there? DeAndre Hopkins had a great
yeah,
week last week.
and he said he has a Roma Dunze, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he had a heck of a game last week. He had a monster game actually. So I don't think this person doesn't. If anything, this person could trade some wide receivers and get maybe some better value back. Get another starting running back.
Running backs in case something happens. That's what I would do too. But yeah, Chuba is your number 3. Who are you going to use on a bye week for Gibbs? Or
and they're coming up. Bye weeks are coming up too.
Yep, keep that in mind. Next one, flex Josh Jacobs or Juwan Jennings. Oh, this is a slam dunk one for me.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, if right now it looks like Samuel's going to sit one more week probably, so it's got to be Jennings.
For sure. Juwan Jennings, Debo might be coming back. I'm not seeing the value in Josh Jacobs at this point, especially this week against Minnesota, who has a very good defense. They've shut down Houston. They've shut down San Francisco. They can shut down Green Bay as well. I don't care if they're playing at Lambeau or not. And Juwan Jennings puts up 30-something points last week. He's the number 1 wide receiver. No brainer. Juwan Jennings.
And what's his name, Jeff? There's another person in the backfield.
Zamir White? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, to pull your point out, Emmanuel Wilson is now a factor in that backfield.
Go ahead, Shawn. Did I lose you?
Are you still? Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can.
Okay, yeah. Emmanuel Wilson is now a factor in that backfield too for the Packers. So that's more, that to me that pulls away from Jacobs.
Yeah, and he's fast. They're going to use him on third down options. If they get behind, he's going to be passing all the catches out of the backfield there.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for the question for KT Owen. Next one is from Big Mac. Can I drop Zamir White or Braylon Allen for Kirk? My other running backs are Saquon, JT, Irving, and Chubb. Boy, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Braylon Allen, I wouldn't. Because I've even thought about putting Braylon Allen in as a flex player.
Yeah, he's flex worthy.
Because he's gotten 8 points as a backup running back. And I wouldn't drop him. If you think you want to get rid of Braylon Allen's, find out whoever has Breece Hall and trade it to him for something really good and have him handcuffed because I know Breece Hall people out there, they're looking at this going, if Hall gets hurt, he's such a workhorse. He's putting up so many points. You're screwed. All of that stuff is going to go to Braylon Allen. I would try to trade Braylon Allen to something.
Yeah, I wouldn't drop. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, if you're going to drop Zamir White, fine. I don't think he's going to do much. I was never a big fan of him last year either, to be honest with you. That's why they brought Alexander Madison in there, although he didn't have very much luck in Minnesota last year. Zamir White and that offense, without knowing who their quarterback is, Adams is hurt.
There's too much unknown now, especially with Adams out.
Yeah. That's if you could drop him, I'd feel comfortable with doing that, but definitely don't drop Braylon Allen.
No, absolutely not.
And then Christian Kirk. You just want to clarify it was Christian Kirk and not like Kirk Cousins or something like that. But yeah, Big Mac, hope that helps you out. I would do that. Trade Braylon Allen if you want to. Get something in return for him, but definitely can get rid of Zamir White. I think his value is lost at this point.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, wide receivers, my man. Let's keep trucking. What do you got?
All right, this week on my slate, I'm in on Khalil Shakur. To me, he's the Bills' wide receiver 1. He had a team high 6 targets last week for 72 yards and a touchdown. You got to throw on the Ravens if you're going to be successful. So I think he's going to get the volume this week. And then, on my stacks part, I'm on Marvin Harrison Jr. Those are my 2 for this week. I'm going to ride Deontay Johnson again because I think Dalton brought life to him. And then we started to see a little bit. I know you and I talked about this last week. I thought Xavier Worthy would be a little bit more. I did see him lined up in the backfield. I know I talked about that on the show last week. I still think he's a piece for them. Their offense, is not clicking on all cylinders, even without the help of the referees. But I think Worthy, I'm going to use Worthy as a sleeper for me this week because he might need 3 touches, but he could score on one of them. So those are 3 for me this week.
Yeah. I've got looking back at last week to see how accurate we were. Must starts were kind of a bust for wide receivers last week. I had Amon-Ra St. Brown. He had 17 points and finished 15th overall. So that was definitely a good play. Then I also had Stephon Diggs. He got 15 points. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 15 points. And Godwin had 15 points. Not really great, though. I mean, they all finished between 18 and 21. So obviously they were must starts. They got you, wide receiver value.
They didn't kill you. They didn't kill you. Yeah. And you and I were all on the same guys last week. I know that.
Yep, exactly. And then my must sits for last week. I told you, that's all I can say. Number one was Jaden Reed. He got 8.9 points, not bad, but that was 40th overall for wide receivers. Rashad Bateman, I said, bench him. He got you 10.3, which was 39th. But my biggest ones were Alec Pierce with the return of Josh Downs. He got you 4.9 points. And then George Pickens, who got you 8.2. Not terrible, but again, number 45 overall.
Yeah, not where you drafted him.
Not what you drafted him for. I think that's great.
No.
My sleepers last week, I said Drake London. He finished 18th overall with 15.5 points. I said Jalen Tolbert, who finished 27th overall. Not bad, but as a sleeper, if you can get that from a sleeper pick, 11.7 points. And then Jalen Naylor, I hardly knew her.
Yeah, Naylor.
He finished 34th overall, 10.9 points. So not bad for sleepers if you took our advice on the sleeper picks from last week. So there's that. My picks for this week, and again, same thing as the running backs here. My top, these are guys top 12 that definitely just have the best matchups. I'm doubling down on Chris Godwin again. He was good last week. I think he's going to be great again this week against Philadelphia. Nico Collins, who was brought up in our questions here. What do I do with Nico Collins? Well, he's playing Jacksonville. Third most, they've given up the third most passing yards in the NFL. Houston has questions at running, right? Cam Akers, is it going to be Mixon? Who do we got back there? So Nico Collins is going to continue to eat. And then I've got Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Washington, who gives up the second most passing yards, third most points overall. My other three is a group outside of the top 12. I've got same thing as you, Khalil Shakir. As much as I hate to say it, you can't tell I'm a Ravens fan. I think he's going to have a big day, and I hate to say it. I think
you have to throw on Baltimore because that you got to move the ball, and he's the quarterback, Josh Allen. So if we take our bias out of it, you would, he's a wide receiver one.
Yeah,
right now he is.
Bias out of it. He's number 19 overall for wide receivers, so it's not like he's a slam dunk. He's my number one guy, but I think he's going to be this week.
Yes, I think he could creep into that top 12 soon.
I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though Seattle has a tough defense, Amon-Ra has been improved since week one. He had a bad week one. He's actually number 17 right now. So, yes, I can use him as a must start because he's not technically even in the top 15.
Nope.
And then probably my deepest one here is Drake London. I'm going to double down on Drake London again. He's number 24 overall. So he's barely a wide receiver 2 on most fantasy teams. But versus New Orleans, I said it before, I think with Kirk Cousins being maybe a deep sleeper at quarterback, he's getting more targets every week after week. And he's gone from 2.5 points to 14.5 to 15.5. New Orleans has given up the 10th most passing yards. So I think those 6 you're probably safe with.
Mm-hmm. I got 2 sits, and they're probably more fades than sits because you can't sit them based on where you drafted them. But I talked about earlier in the show, I'm concerned about Waddle. I don't think that quarterback, whoever it is, can support 2 wideouts, and right now it's Hill. So I'm concerned about Waddle. He's in my article as a sit. He had, if I pull it up here, I have him as my dud, and he was. Look on here. I'm sorry, he had 3 catches, I think, last week. He was not very good. And then my other one, and you can't sit him because of where you drafted him, but Garrett Wilson gets Pat Surtain this week. So you're obviously starting him, but Surtain, those are 2 spots where Wilson has not where you drafted him. I drafted him on the end of the first round. That's where he's going. And he is certainly not. He's wide receiver 31. So if you drafted him at 12th overall and he's wide receiver 31, like I said, they're more fades than sit, but those are serious concerns for me.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And we're kind of on the same page there as far as the sits. My think about it, and the first guy we're not going to have to think about, because as I was drawing this up, he was still questionable for the week, but now he's listed as out. Devontae Adams, and I even put him here. He's got a hamstring issue. Who the hell's throwing on the ball? It's against the Cleveland defense. I would honestly, I mean, obviously he's out now, but he was going to be one of my sits. Quentin Johnson, for the Chargers. You know,
he saved his day on one catch.
Yeah, it's funny that I've got him as a sit, because when I went back and looked at it, he's only owned by 50% of all leagues. So if you don't have this guy, you probably should go out and get him.
Yes.
With good matchups, this guy can put up points, but just not this week against Kansas City. That, and you've got questions around Herbert and how good is his ankle and all that kind of stuff. My third sit is, I'm going back to what I did last week, Jaden Reed. Still not sold on him. Yes, I'm going back to Jaden Reed again. Keep him on your bench for the second week in a row. He's ninth in, and the reason is because he's ninth in fantasy points for wide receivers. So he's still up there for what he did in the first couple of weeks. So if you're looking at that, stop looking at it. He's got Malik Willis throwing him the ball now. It's not conducive to him getting more points. At this point, it's all smoke and mirrors. He had 31 points in his first week, 5.5 in his second, 9 last week. He's not a startable wide receiver right now, maybe in a flex, but that would be about it. I would sit him again for this week against Minnesota. And then my sleepers for this week, again, these are guys that are not in the top 12. You mentioned him already, Garrett Wilson. He's been quiet. He's actually ranked number 35 overall for wide receivers. He's going up against Denver. I think he's going to have a breakout week. So I think he could be a sleeper just because he's outside of the top 30. I've also got Calvin Ridley in there. Virtually nothing last week. So expect him to have a breakout. He's actually listed at number 28. DJ Moore, I think we brought him up before as well. DJ Moore, I think, is a good sleeper candidate. He's number 40 overall. And that really blows my mind that he's number 40 overall. Keenan Allen is back. You know, maybe that takes some pressure off of him. I'm not sure why he's not getting the ball, but then you got JSN is my number 4 sleeper. And I think it's only a matter of time before he gets his in the end zone. And he's averaging 6 receptions per game so far. It's just that he's not getting a whole lot of yards. He's not getting any scores. But if defenses start to sleep on him, and we mentioned DK Metcalf before, JSN is going to have a breakout. I think he's a good sleeper against Detroit, which, again, should be a high-scoring game.
And to back up what you said about Reed, Jeff, I was just looking here. He's got 15 touches and through 3 games, but he has 2 touchdowns. So he had, but before the last game, he had an unsustainable touch to touchdown ratio. So if obviously if Love comes back this week, which is possible, you know, he might be someone using your flex, but I think I saw Christian Watson out there a lot on waivers. I actually picked him up because I think he profiles more as the wide receiver 1 in that team. But, you know, I'm not sure that the scoring output that Reed's putting up is sustainable, to your point. And then you talked about JSN, which another point to back up what you said. I believe Geno is QB 13. Yeah. And I did a write-up on the single game DFS slates. I do a lot of that, you know, 3 or 4 of those a week for a total Apex, and I got Geno as a start this week. So,
so does Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah. So, hey, I must be doing something right then, right?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, Geno's very, you know, it's amazing how his career just completely flipped around in Seattle. But, like, you know, you could do a lot worse as Geno was your starting quarterback. Yeah,
you could. You definitely could. He's got a lot of weapons to support him. So I don't think he's ever going to have, you know, well, he probably will. I don't want to say ever. He probably will have his down weeks. He probably won't be a guy that gets you 20 points plus in more than a handful of games this year. And that's if they're maybe falling behind. But yeah, it's definitely an option. JSN, like him as a sleeper. And I think Geno is not a bad quarterback. And the way that the rest of that division is playing right now, number one, you're talking about San Francisco, you're talking about the Rams, you're talking about the Cardinals. They all have the potential to put up a lot of points. So any quarterback in that whole division at any given time could be a starter for you because they're all putting up points.
And I meant to bring this up because I was thinking about this because you and I talked about this last week. Amari Cooper was wide receiver 82 last week. After this week, last week's game, he's up to wide receiver 39. If that trend continues where he's going to feature Cooper and support one wide receiver, he's got a decent matchup. He could be someone I don't know that we call him a sleeper because he's the wide receiver one in his team, but if you feel a lot better about Amari Cooper shares this week than you did last week at this time when you and I talked about it.
Yeah, for sure. And, talking about wide receiver ones, you kind of brought him up before. I drafted Christian Watson in one of my other leagues, and I couldn't believe that he was on the board at that point in time. It was like round 12 or 13, and Christian Watson is still there. And I'm thinking, has everybody, because even I missed it, has everybody missed that he's just there still? He is the wide receiver one in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe his numbers are different when Jordan Love comes back. Maybe it's all Malik Willis. Who really knows? But, yeah, can't back off of the number one on anybody's team.
And for our viewers, Jeff, I just got a notification. Olave added to the injury report with a hamstring today in practice.
Oh, boy.
So for our viewers out there, if you got Olave, make sure you monitor. We know how the soft tissue injuries are, especially for a wide receiver. So keep an eye on that. Yeah,
Rashid Shaheed was non-existent last week. Mm-hmm. So he's due for maybe a big bounce back as well this week. And he's one of those wide receivers I think he's rated higher than Olave is at this point as well. And you brought up Kamara earlier in the running back segment. Him could be a big week for out of the backfield catching wise too. Absolutely.
If Olave sits.
All right. The Joker, I know it's been a few minutes since we got since you posted your question here. Relatively easy question. We kind of talked about this earlier. Full PPR. Drop Zamir White for Roschon Johnson. I would say at this point, yes. It might be a little bit premature, but you want to get Roschon Johnson before somebody else does.
Yes, before he blows up.
Yep.
What if he goes for 75 yards and a touchdown this week? I mean, hey.
Yeah, Zamir White's not going to do anything. Sorry, I don't see it. I think there's more upside to Roschon Johnson, who hasn't played outside of last week, and he's going to be taking over the lead role. Apparently, word from Chicago is that he's going to be taking over for DeAndre Swift, who's been he's been awful, Jeff.
Yeah, and think awful. Of it this, and here's another.
Holes. Like
I know,
literally, like there's holes.
No,
it's blocking schemes that he's just not even recognizing.
No,
which is weird.
It's crazy. And to help that other person that just wrote in, think of it this way: if you are a defensive coordinator and the quarterback's turning around to do a play action, who are you more afraid of, Caleb Williams or Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell? Who are you going to honor? You know what I'm saying? So for me, I'm going to lean on the quarterback. You know this, Jeff. It's a quarterback-driven league. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams as running mate than I am with Minshew or O'Connell right now. So.
Yeah, no, for sure, and especially how long is Adam's going to be out for at this point?
Yeah, and that hurts too. Exactly.
So yes, definitely do that. The Joker. Thank you for your question. We are going to move on to the tight ends. Do you want me to lead with this one, or
go ahead? Yep, go ahead.
So for tight ends, this has been the most nerve-wracking group of individuals in fantasy football this week, and it changes from week to week. Remember when Isaiah Likely had the gigantic week 1, and then he's disappeared now in week 3. And there's other guys like Dallas Goedert. Where the hell did he go? And now he blew up in week 3. So
I know.
Last week, I will say that this is probably the one category where I was not that great in. My must-starts were Kyle Pitts. He didn't do too bad. He finished 9th overall with 7 points. Ouch, only. And then Brock Bowers, who finished 15th overall with 5.5 points. That was just, kind of an anomaly to what happened last week with different players coming in and actually contributing. And then my must-sits for last week, not great. I told you to sit Dalton Kincaid, which he finished number 5 overall with 11.5 points. But I did tell you to sit Greg Dulcich, and he finished with a big fat goose egg. So I do get some credit for that one. My sleepers, I had Brenton Strange. Nailed it. Yep. Finished number 7 overall as a sleeper, 8.2 points. And then Dalton Schultz, who continues to not show up, 2.1. So that's who I had last week anyway.
Yep. You and I were together on everything last week. So I kind of haven't been doing a report card because we basically had the same stuff. But I had Bowers last week, and we talked about that. You and I know we both talked about Strange because we knew Ingram was sitting. So you and I were in sync last week. That's for sure. All
right, so I'm going to give it a shot again this week. I've got 3 starters, 3 sleepers, and 3 people that you should maybe stay away from this week. Number 1, I'm going to go. These are all really obvious, really. Dallas Goedert at Tampa Bay, because there's really nobody else to throw to in Philly right now. A.J. Brown is still out. Devonta Adams is recovering from a concussion. We don't know if he's going to play or not. Dallas Goedert came out big week last week. I'm going to double down on Brock Bowers. He's still been the most consistent tight end in football this year. You can't go away from him. Now that Devonta Adams is out, he should be getting more looks than he did last week, especially versus Cleveland. And then you've got Cole Kmet versus the LA Rams, who aren't great defending tight ends so far this year. I've got him as my number 3. Guys that are outside of the top 12. And I'm going to call these guys my sleepers. But my number 1 sleeper outside of the top 12, I've got Pat Freiermuth against Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to be a big one out there. They've already shown that they're going to, kind of blanket George Pickens, but he's number 14 overall rated for tight ends. I got Tyler Conklin, who had a massive week last week. He's rated number 15 overall fantasy points for tight ends. And then it might be a little bit of a cheat, but Travis Kelce, he's going to bounce back sometime. And I think what better week to do it than against the LA Chargers. So those are my 3 sleepers.
I don't even need to go, Jeff, because all the ones I have written down, you already said. So we're in sync. I mean, I like Brock Bowers. And when I wrote my DFS article for Total Apex Sports, I had Bowers in there. And now, obviously, it was before I knew Adams was out. I like Kmet because of the passing volume with the Bears. He's actually shut up to tight end 3, but it's easy to jump to tight end. I mean, Freiermuth is 13. And he was nowhere to be found last week. I like him and Kincaid. Kincaid's 12 and Freiermuth 13. So I like both of those guys. Here's one, Jeff, that I was looking at that I don't know if he's a sleeper, but maybe one may not. But because of the volume passing game, is Zach Ertz is tight end 10. I don't know that he's a sleeper, but I have him in a league because I punted on tight end. So I have him as my starting tight end. Like I said, I guess based on the names and his age, he might be considered a sleeper, but I like, Ertz this week. Sits, I'm going to go with the obvious ones. I don't like Okonkwo for Tennessee. These guys are out there. I mean, these are kind of easy ones. Jonnu Smith for Miami. How do you trust anything in the Miami passing game right now? Those are 2 for me. Travis Kelce would be in the sit category because of his ranking, but you're not sitting him. But he is tight end 22.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call him a sit, but he maybe is a fade or a buyer beware.
Fair enough.
You're starting him based on I have to start him. I drafted him in probably a handful of leagues. Based on where you draft him, I can't sit him because I in a 1 tight end league, that's all I've got.
Yeah. My sits, I only had 2 because I could really only think of 2 for sure, but then a whole group of tight ends that you shouldn't go with. We talked about Hunter Henry. He's number 10 overall versus San Fran. I don't like the matchup. I don't know what they're going to play. I don't like the game plan. Nothing. San Fran is supposed to walk away with this one. Vegas has them by 10 points.
Yep.
So I think this is going to be easily a San Fran game. But I think they're really going to get after whoever they've got in the pocket. Jacoby Brissett, Drake May. I don't care who you got back there.
Yeah.
You would think that, maybe they'll use Hunter Henry as a dump off. I still don't like it. I would stay away from that one. Chig Okonkwo is my number 2 guy, Tennessee. He's got 7 receptions for 46 yards and 1 touchdown. Otherwise, he hasn't done anything. And again, bad quarterback play in Tennessee. I'm not a fan of Will Levis at this point. And then my third one was whatever Green Bay tight end that you think is going to do something. They're probably not against Minnesota. I don't care if it's Kraft or I'm not sure if Musgrave is injured or if he's not injured or whoever. I don't care. I don't like either one of them.
Yep, and I agree with you. They're loaded at receiver, really. I mean, they got 3 really good options. Wicks doesn't hardly even touch the ball. I've got him in a bunch of teams. I've kept him. I've dropped them for knees, but Wicks he's a home run threat. He's the wide receiver 3, but I mean, I'd keep Wicks or I'd start Wicks before I started a Green Bay tight end just for the upside.
Yeah. So here's the big question when it comes to tight end, because I didn't know what to do with this one. I think we both know that the Ravens and the Bills are going to have a big game.
Yep.
Is a tight end going to have a game for the Ravens? And then you've got, is it going to be Isaiah Likely, who did nothing last week? Or is it going to be Mark Andrews, who hasn't done anything all year?
Yeah.
Obviously they're going to have to pass at some point in time. you can't run the ball like you did last week and run for 257 yards or whatever it was against the Dallas Cowboys. You're going to have to pass to keep up with the Bills. Do you see a tight end in that offense that is going to be a beneficiary?
Well, I'm blown away. Being you know this better than anybody, that I think Andrews had 2 games with a 0, Jeff, which blows my mind away. And then I wrote a article this week on the Bills Ravens on the betting side and the DFS side. And I'll speak to this at the DFS side. He's probably going to go low owned, but because of his thing. But if you plug Andrews in your DFS lineups, he's probably low owned. You could really get unique, and that could be the player that propels you over. Because, like we talked about, I think it's the slate's number 2 total this week and get implied total. I just don't understand how, because based on where you drafted him, he's so disappointing. There's no way. Let's pull it up here that he's going to finish tight end 29. I mean, there's no way, because that's what he is right now. He was drafted in some spots as like tight end 2 or 3. I mean, I know McBride was up there, Laporta was up there, but I'm going to say sleeper tight end, put him in there. I'm thinking FanDuel on the main slate, the Sunday night game, not DraftKings. But if you plug in Andrews and he goes off, you could be sitting pretty. He's got to, law of averages, positive regression, he's due for, seriously.
Yeah. We've got Washington, Arizona. The over-under is 49. Bengals, Carolina, 47. Yeah,
I think
Bills Ravens 46.5. So
yeah, it's top 3, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, top 3, and then Seattle, Detroit right behind them went 46.
Slate total, yep.
So
that's Sunday night and Monday game. So for the main slate in FanDuel, you don't even have that. You have to take that Lions Seahawks game out of there.
Yeah. Here we've got a question. Do I drop Jordan Love for Jacoby Myers? I would instantly say no.
No.
I have Lamar as my quarterback and other decent quarterbacks.
Trade Love
waivers if I can't get Love back. Yeah, trade him. Somebody will take him.
Yeah, or wait till Love comes back, has a good week, and trade him. So high.
If you need a wide receiver, which it sounds like that's why you're asking, you could also drop. He posted also. He could also drop Lockett.
Mm-hmm.
I would try to, if you're in need of a wide receiver, I would try to sell Jordan Love as high as possible for a wide receiver that's not doing very well right now.
Yeah, and if you can wait 1 week, if you can wait for the week for him to play, have a decent showing, you'll get even better value out of him.
Yeah, because I think when he does come back, he's going to be good in that offense.
Oh yeah.
So if you can't get what you're looking for in a wide receiver, if that's what you're looking for in a better wide receiver, because you're looking for Jacoby Myers, which he's going to be a wide receiver number 1. But again, my hesitation with that is for who?
Yeah, and more breaking news, Jeff, for our viewers. You nailed one of these, and the tight end was Goddard. But A.J. Smith and Brown are out again this week. So for our viewers, you help me out with this, Jeff. Yep. Jahan Dotson maybe as a sleeper this week. A deep sleeper, maybe Paris Campbell. But someone's got to catch the ball from Hurts.
Yeah. And that's why I had Goddard as my number 1.
You put out Goddard, and you're right on that. This looks even better now.
That is crazy. Yeah, if you can get Jahan Dotson, and like you said, Paris Campbell, Johnny Wilson, I don't know who their number 3 wide receiver is. And here's another question too. How long before Michael Thomas gets picked up? What is this?
I know.
Like Philly can't use this wide receiver. Like the Rams can't use this wide
receiver. How about my Steelers? They need a second wide out.
What are we waiting for here?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the Steelers have no ancillary wide receiver too. I mean, Austin, if you take that catch away, he's done nothing in 3 games.
So same guy who's asking about the Jordan Love drop. I'm between Swift, Lockett, or Myers this week. That's depending on picking up Myers.
If he gets Myers, his outlook is better because of no Adams, obviously. And then Swift, I guess of those three, Jeff, I would think Myers just because I think they're pulling back on Swift.
Yeah. My 1, 2, 3 would be Myers, Lockett, Swift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because Myers has more upside at this point. Lockett's still sharing between DK Metcalf and JSN. So you got Myers as a clear cut number 1 wide receiver in Las Vegas, even though you're not really sure who's throwing on the ball. Somebody's going to have to throw it to him. He's going to catch something. He might get 10 targets and only 5 catches, but still. Yeah.
And he had 8 or 9 touchdowns last year, Myers.
Yeah, he's not bad.
No.
Jonathan Kopf, KOPF. Trade Tyreek for Olave, full PPR. Olave manager panicking. I have DJ Moore, Addison, Johnston, Pittman, Dell, and Neighbors. Wow, you don't even need Tyreek Hill.
No, he actually could because, I mean, that's close.
Trading Tyreek Hill for Olave.
He's getting Olave back, and he's pretty loaded at wide receiver. It's not a bad. I mean, I could see that.
Over Tyreek Hill if that's what
I think that's what he's asking, and based on what he's saying, he's pretty set at wide receiver.
You know, Addison is still on the. He's not playing yet. Johnston, Pittman.
He's got a wide receiver. I learned one time. I mean, you probably know this is nothing earth shattering, but you want as many wide receiver ones on your team as you can get.
Yep. He also has Christian Kirk. Between those 3, who would you start? Oh, he was talking, and that goes back to Swift, Lockett, and Myers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we answered that one. Myers first, Lockett 2, Swift 3.
Yes.
So should I drop Lockett for Myers? I have Devontae 2, but he's out.
Well, the Myers gives you the insurance every week for Adams.
It does.
Because he has Adams, I guess, yeah. Or if he can get Tucker, if Tucker's out there, he's okay too.
Yeah, and we talked about this before, handcuffing running backs. And that's what I like to do just in case you've got a running back, because it doesn't matter what league that you're in, you're always going to need a running back. You're going to handcuff your wide receiver. It's not a bad play. Obviously, Devontae Adams should be doing something, but if he's out, you would assume that Jacoby Myers is going to take over in that offense, him and Brock Bowers probably. But would you drop Lockett for Myers? I guess I would. If you have Adams, if I have to drop, if that's the thing, I would rather have Myers than Lockett.
Especially he has Adams.
Yeah. Yeah, because I wouldn't want to play Lockett instead of Devontae Adams. I would want to play whoever's taking over for Devontae Adams. So, yeah, Myers would be my guy there for sure.
Yep.
Wow.
And we got a lot of nice thank the people that wrote in. That's pretty sweet. Thank you everybody that wrote in.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good questions like we had last week. I like to bring up what we said last week because you can see that we're not full of crap, that we're actually giving good advice to you. And I don't get too deep in the woods with here. We kind of did this last week. We don't talk about kickers.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I got a little visitor here. It's his birthday today. So.
Oh, happy birthday. What's his name?
Andrew.
That is awesome. You know, my son's name is Drew.
Okay.
And I wanted to name him Andrew.
Okay.
We went with Drew just for short. So does he go by Andy? Does he go by
He goes by Andrew or Drew, but he really just Andrew. Yep.
Yeah. Cool deal. Everybody say happy birthday to Andrew. How old is he going to be?
He's 6 today.
6 today. Awesome. Well, good weekend for it. Well, I'm not sure about you. In Minnesota, it's going to be a nice weekend, but
yeah. Wait, you're in Minnesota. That's right. I forgot. My wife's company is based out of Minnesota too for work.
You know, this is really cool too because we come down to Greensboro. My wife's parents live in Greensboro, North Carolina. Okay. So if we ever get to, next time that we're down there,
yes, that's only an hour and a half for me. So
yeah, let's go ahead and let's make that work. But last topic that we've got here. Oh, we've got more questions coming in. Great. Mixon, Debo, Adams, all on my bench hurt, and that's why. Same guy who's kind of going between the whole Lockett and Adams.
Yeah. Then he's got to start he could actually start either one, but I think Lockett's dropped to wide receiver 3 with Najigba's patched him. So it's got to be Myers.
Yep. I would do that. I think you're good there, Blurpy, to go ahead and get rid of Lockett and pick up Jacoby Myers. RGQ start sit Najee versus Indy or Chuba versus Cincinnati.
Oh. That's a tough one, Jeff. I'm going to let you take that one because my bias would say Najee, but I don't think you can go wrong with either one.
Yeah, here's the thing. I had both of those guys, both Najee Harris and Chuba Hubbard, in my sleeper crew for this week.
Yes, that's right.
So you're looking at Chuba Hubbard's number 21 overall. Najee is number 32 overall, but he's not going to be splitting carries. Cincinnati is eighth, has given up the eighth most rushing yards, eighth most points. They're playing in Carolina. Andy Dalton has something to prove there against Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. Oh, here's one tiebreaker, not to interrupt you, Jeff. I do like to do, as I'll look at the complied total. The Steelers, Colts is 40, and the Bengals, Panthers is 47. So by our numbers, and you and I are both numbers guys, you'd lean Chubbard based on that.
I would lean Chubbard based on that. I also think Indy's got a little bit better defense there.
Mm-hmm.
Indy has a better defense to shut down that run, and if that's part of the Indy game plan, which it absolutely should be,
has to be,
is that you're going to make Justin Fields beat you, which is still in question. So I would go Chuba Hubbard on this one. Please let me know how that works. Obviously, we're going to know how it works out, but I hope you win based off of that.
And it pains me to go against Harris, but it makes sense. I mean, if you're going to look at the numbers like you and I do, it's got to be Chuba. And, 7 points is a touchdown in a game, difference in 40 and 47. Well, it could be Chuba's touchdown.
Feel good about the Chuba Hubbard. I would feel confident in that one versus Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
A.J. Brown playing? No.
No, he's not.
Brown is out.
He just got declared out as you and I are speaking.
Yeah, so if you've got A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith is also out. Go out and get yourself Jahan Dotson if he's still available.
Yes.
Otherwise, some other wide receivers that might be available in there. We mentioned it before. Quentin Johnston is only owned by 50% of leagues. If you can get, who's another one? Rashad Bateman has been dropped by quite a few people.
Yep, and that Tucker from the Raiders.
High scoring. Trey Tucker for the Raiders. Yep, he's going to get some more play. So if you're looking for some wide receivers to go in on, Tutu Atwell is another one. Not owned by a lot. Tutu Atwell's the number 2
he's probably the wide receiver 1, right, Jeff?
Behind Demarcus Robinson. Yep. So go out and get yourself one of those individuals. If you are really having a lot of injury-prone problems with your wide receivers, those guys out there, go check your waivers or go check your free agents in your fantasy league. Those guys are going to be the guys that you're going to be able to fill in with and have some confidence with it. We talked about the game already. Rashad Bateman, they're going to have to pass. They're not going to run 250 yards, and you're not going to be able to get to Zay Flowers all day long. The tight ends are in question. Last week, Rashad Bateman, who should be the true number 1 in Baltimore, if they utilized him correctly, he should be the true number 1 there. He should be getting more looks. Had a missed touchdown in week 2. Did have a passing touchdown or receiving touchdown last week. Look for him for a gap fill. But again, Tutu Atwell is the number 1, number 2 guy there. Mm-hmm. A lot of defenses are going to focus in on Kyron Williams to stop him, make Matthew Stafford beat them, which he can.
Yes, he can.
That will be able to beat you.
He can sling it. He can still sling it. And another thing for our viewers, and Jeff, I think you probably would agree with me on this. If you're in a 12 team or deeper, and it's a 1 quarterback, 1 tight end, I carry 1 tight end, one quarterback, and I load up my running backs and wide receivers. It's so volatile. So get these guys. Get, like Jeff just said, get Tutu Atwell, get Trey Tucker, get Rashad Bateman, put them on your bench. They're 1 injury away from playing 80% of the snaps, and they're far more valuable than that tight end or backup quarterback you're going to use once.
Right.
Like if you have Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, guys like that, you can get the backup, worry about the backup maybe the week before when they're on bye. Load up your bench, get your depth, because we didn't know Devontae Adams was about to be declared out today. We sort of didn't know about A.J. Brown. We just found out, Devontae Smith's out. You need the depth to plug in. Those injuries are piling up, plus buys are coming. They're way more valuable to you than a backup quarterback and a backup tight end.
Absolutely. I've only got, in our fantasy Turf Wars league, I've only got 1 quarterback and 1 tight end. I'm going Joe Burrow because I know I'm going to start him every week.
Absolutely.
If the matchup is bad or not. And now, granted, we only get to keep 17 players total.
Yes.
And that's starting 3 wide receivers and a flex and 2 running backs. But I've also only got 1 tight end and Brock Bowers because I know that I'm not going to start anybody else. So there's no point in getting somebody else when I can have 6 wide receivers on my team and 5 or 6 running backs on my team.
Yeah.
Do that.
I mean, I have 1 tight end. I've got Kincaid in that league. Now, I'm going against my advice here, but in that league, I've got Deshaun Watson and I've got Justin Fields, my quarterback, because I waited too long for quarterback. So I kind of have no choice. I kind of leaning, but if Watson would if one of them would take the bull by the horns, I would get rid of the other one.
Yeah. So same guy asked, Chuba is the feature back too. Miles Sanders is what, a third down back? Well, if you look at last week, you've got Chuba Hubbard had 21 carries, 114 yards, 5 receptions. Yes, Miles Sanders is going to get a handful of carries. He's in there every once in a while. He's definitely not the feature back. Chuba Hubbard is without a doubt the feature back. And it's funny because then he said I should have picked up Wan'Dale Robinson. He had a great night last night.
He had a heck of a night last night. Yes,
if you don't have him, I would get him right now anyway, because it looks like Malik Neighbors had a concussion last night. And while Wan'Dale Robinson, he must have had, I don't know what the stat line was, but he had close to 10 receptions last night.
Oh, yeah. He had a bunch of targets.
He about 75 yards because he wasn't catching a whole lot of deep balls. And he was usually getting tackled right away. But if you're in a PPR league, that's going to be huge for you anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
I'll pull it up for our viewers right here, Jeff. He had...
Is Jordan Love back this week? I think that's
he had 11 receptions last night, Wan'Dale, for 71 yards on 14 targets. Now, not a big average depth of target. He got 6.5 yards.
But even in a half PPR, you're still getting 7 points off of
exactly. He still had 11 catches. So you're looking at in a full PPR, he had 18.1 points. You'd sign up for that any day.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if I missed something here with Green Bay. Somebody is questioning whether or not Jordan Love is back. It looks like he is questionable at this point.
Yes.
As of 30 minutes ago, is listed as questionable for Sunday's game against the Vikings. So stay tuned for that one. Obviously, we don't have that information there. Neither one of us for the Packers. But it looks
he
like
is practicing, but he's going to, sorry to interrupt. He's going to be a game time decision, I would think. Again, it's probably going to go right up to game time, or you'll know early Sunday morning. Someone will leak it and say not expected to play or whatever.
Yep. All right, we've got another bigger question here. Ertz, Schultz, or Komet this week? Schultz has much better touchdown odds than Ertz. Not getting a line on Komet yet. Also, Darnold or Goff. So the first one that I would go with, Ertz, Schultz, or Komet. I'm going Komet all day long. Yep,
absolutely. He's tight end 3 right now. So if you go off of that, you're starting Komet. I'm with you on that.
I don't know how you're not going after Komet. He's got to be a top 3 play at tight end for this week with that Chicago offense going against the Rams. Rams are going to put up numbers. I don't care, like I said before, who Stafford is throwing the ball to. They still have Kyron Williams back there. They're going to get points. Caleb Williams has been inefficient as a downfield passer. He's overthrown, underthrown. I think Cole Kmet last week showed you that he's going to be the out or the safety for Caleb Williams to get to. So I would definitely go Kmet over Schultz or Ertz. And then he also asked Darnold or Goff this week. Vegas thinks Goff. I think Darnold. I'm going Darnold on this. I'm going to go against Vegas. On that. I think that game, especially if Jordan Love is good enough to play, I think that even increases Darnold. Darnold's had a better season so far than Goff. If you need a secure blanket of 15 points, that's what Goff is going to get you. And, I guess this is where it comes into play. There's a lot of storyline between this Minnesota-Green Bay game, starting with the running backs, right?
Yep.
Aaron Jones is going back to Lambeau to play a team that didn't want him and got Josh Jacobs, who's been disappointing. So now you've got this, man, there's a lot of storylines there with that game. I would go Darnold just because I like the Darnold, the JJ. Jalen Naylor has been really good.
Yep.
They've got the running game that's going to keep you off balance. I think they've been calling a great play script to beat Houston, to beat San Fran. They're 3-0 for a reason. They're very balanced.
Yep.
I like Darnold there.
And Jeff, he's QB5 right now. He is first in the league with 8 touchdown passes through 3 games, 8.4 pass, yards per attempt. He's right there. So, and passing yards, he is 14, but he has Jefferson. So, I mean, we're just going to look at the numbers. He's QB5.
What? And being QB5, sorry to interrupt you, but this is
you're good.
A very important thing is that's QB5 playing in games where they've dominated those games and not needed to pass so much.
No, 100%.
They dominated Houston. They dominated San Fran. They still pass a lot. They still got to get JJ the ball. They're still going to throw to keep that defense off balance, and that's how they've been successful. So definitely Darnold.
And he's 5th in fantasy points by quarterbacks. So total.
Next question. Kane Royce, trade Hubbard and Drake London for Tyreek Hill and Josh Jacobs. Absolutely 1,000% not.
I second that.
Yeah, you can't
Not
trade
right now.
Hubbard and Drake
There's
London
no way.
for Tyreek Hill and Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs hasn't been doing much. He's going to lose time to Elijah. What's his name? The running
Wilson.
back number 2.
Yep.
Tyreek Hill doesn't have a quarterback that's even throwing him the ball right now. Drake London is rejuvenated this year with Kirk Cousins being down there. And Chuba Hubbard, we just said, I think he's going to be a sleeper this week to put you some good points up against Cincinnati.
Yep. And Jeff, last week, this is how dire it is. Just give me a second. I'll pull this up. Miami scored 3 points last week.
Yeah, that's bad.
Their quarterback threw for 107 yards. Now, we know Huntley might get in there. We talked about Waddle. I had him as a sit. I think you were in agreement. 4 catches for 26 yards.
They're not utilizing Jonnu Smith.
Nope.
I feel like I have to kind of keep reminding people that Jonnu Smith was 20th overall in receiving yards last year as a tight end number 2 in Atlanta behind Kyle Pitts.
Yep.
So a lot of the receiving options back there. So it's 100% wholeheartedly on that quarterback play.
Yep.
And until they put in Tyler Huntley, they're going to see a lot of the same thing that they had last week, which was 3 points.
Tyreek Hill 3 for 40 last week.
Yeah, they couldn't get in the end zone, and they were given options. They had the ball on a interception or a
they were set up
6-yard line, and they still had to settle for a field goal. So I wouldn't trust anything in Miami at this point.
No, absolutely not. You can't.
Trent Ganja. What's up, guys? I need your opinion on my flex spot in a half PPR. My options are Brian Thomas Jr., Jerome Ford. I think he will play, but a little banged up, and Khalil Shakir versus the Ravens. We kind of covered this before.
Both you and I already. You go ahead, buddy. I know what you're about to say. So
I hate to say it. I think Khalil Shakir is going to have a big day, more so than Brian Thomas Jr. and Jerome Ford.
I guess. I'm sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
No.
Ford would be the second choice for me because you and I talked about that. I had him in my article as a start because he's got a good matchup, and they need to run the ball to take the heat off of Watson because both tackles out again. But you can't. There's no way you're starting if you have the choice. Shakur far above Ford. That offense is a mess in Cleveland.
For sure, it's not even close. It's a clear number 1.
Clear number 1.
Number 2, number 3. I'd probably go Jerome Ford just because Las Vegas isn't going to put up a lot of points anyway. So I think the run game is still going to be in play the entire day, and they're going to have to feed Jerome Ford at some point in time.
Yeah, and you're talking about a game total pushing 50 versus one that's the lowest on the slate at 37 in that Raiders-Browns game.
Is Reed still a start if Love is out? I would say no.
It also depends. What does he have, right, Jeff? What does he have? Like, that would help us if we know what. I mean, if you got better options, I'm with you because if Love starts, okay, yes, but we don't know right now.
We don't. And I said Reed no last week. I'm going to double down on that and say Reed no again. This week he had 1 big week out of 3.
Yes.
So if you want to say what's he done more so, either done really well and gained you 30 points or really bad and only gotten you a handful, he's been really bad more than he's been really good.
He's the ultimate best ball player.
Yeah. If you've got other options out there, I would say no. And here's my other take on this too. Just because a guy comes back, and this is exactly what happened to Justin Herbert last week. So he's questionable all week. He ends up playing. He gets hit once, and now he's out of the game. So you have to take into consideration, Love isn't not going to get hit by this Vikings defense that's been really stout.
Yes.
So even if Love plays, how many hits can he take before he's out again? So I'm still going to pass on Reed.
Yep, I'm with you.
My wide receivers, and this is the same guy, Reed, that was asking about Reed. My wide receivers, Flowers, Mooney, Reed, Pittman, AJB. So I like Flowers because I think that's going to be a pass-heavy game.
I think based on what you said, I think he has to use Reed.
Yep.
As if he starts to start 3 wide receivers, I probably would start Reed in there.
Well, you can't use A.J. Brown. So you're looking at Flowers, Mooney, and then either Pittman or Reed.
I would take because Pittman's probably going to see Joey Porter Jr. more often than not, and Richardson's been a lousy passer. So in this gentleman's case, he probably has to go Reed.
You're going to have to because Pittman
has to. He has to.
Running back Saquon, Jacobs, Najee, Chuba, and Ford. Should I drop Ford for Jacoby? Well, that's a different one because we do like Jacoby. But Ford for Jacoby?
Say that. Jacoby.
Jacoby Myers is what I'm guessing.
Oh, Jacoby Myers. Okay.
Drop Jerome Ford for Jacoby. I would try again if you can't.
I hate to give up Ford because you don't know when Chubb's. I hate to give up Ford because he's the running back one on the team. Those are gold. I hate to give it up. Versus Myers is probably a 1 week play. I hate giving up Ford.
I guess I agree with you 100%. I wouldn't give up a running back one no matter how bad the team is. For who's going to be wide receiver 1 for a week.
Yes.
And then go back to being wide receiver 2.
Right. And maybe Bowers is the wide receiver 1 this week for them.
Right. 0.5 PPR redraft. My starting wide receiver this week right now is Flowers, Reed, and I'm going to guess he tried to say Mooney.
Okay.
No question, though. Oh, it was the same. Sorry, it was the same individual that we've been talking about his last ones. Kane Royce, do you guys think Mike Evans will get out of his slump? Absolutely.
Yeah. You're not sitting him.
Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards receiving for 10, 11 years in a row. Just because they went to one guy last week.
He's a great red zone threat.
Was the big guy last week. Might be Mike Evans this week, and Godwin does nothing. So
and they target him. Yeah, you have to start him. Like you just have to ride it out. And he's a touchdown. He's a great rider. He's a great threat in the red zone. He's a big guy. He can high point the ball. Yeah, you got to keep him.
You can't not start Mike Evans.
No, you're
going to hate yourself.
You have to be loaded to not. If he's your 4th receiver, you're loaded.
Right. So, do we think that Mike Evans will get out of the slump? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Mark says, if Mixon plays, start over Ramondre Stevenson. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Better offense. Period.
He may share snaps coming back. That's true.
Maybe.
But Ramondre got 0.3 points last week. You
saw how the usage they had in Mixon when he was healthy. They used him.
Oh, Mixon. And, I praised the hell out of him at the beginning of the season, saying that, hey, you know what? They gave him 30-plus carries. He did all of this. He still got some tread on the tires. He looked fresh. He was juking people. He was spinning people. Mm-hmm. Mixon is a great running back. So even him at 50%, splitting time with Cam Akers is still better than Ramondre Stevenson, in my opinion.
And I'll pull it up to help our guy here. Week 1, 30 carries for 159 yards and a touchdown. That was Mixon week 1. So when he's healthy, he got 30 of the 40 running back touches.
Yeah. And you know that Houston's going to score. You don't know that the Patriots are.
And I'll go back. The tiebreaker for me, who's the better quarterback? Who's got the better quarterback? That's a no-brainer.
Yep. Absolutely. I don't think we have any more questions. I know you got kids and stuff at.
We're good.
We're on.
We made a couple guest appearances on here. Thank you.
Right. We're on about an hour and a half right now. Do you have to take off, or do you want to go over defenses real quick? Or?
Yeah, we can go defenses real quick. Yep.
All right, cool in the gang. Defenses, it's not usually a big thing. This year it has been, though. I've had Buffalo as my defense for the first couple of weeks, and they've been dominant. And I will tell you right now, I'm starting Buffalo's defense again this week against Baltimore because here's my thought process on it. I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan. So if Baltimore ends up killing Buffalo, I'm happy. If Buffalo shuts down Baltimore, I'm still happy. So sometimes you have to play that game. Yeah. Otherwise, if I don't start Buffalo and they end up shutting down Baltimore and they win, then I'm pissed off on 2 levels. I got Buffalo, which played very well on my bench, and also the Ravens lost. So,
I'll speak defense from a couple. So I'll speak from a DF. Well, from the redraft seasonal, I found the Vikings on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues, so I picked them up. So that's mine, which is probably not earth shattering, obviously, because they're very good, but that's one. And then for DFS. I'm a big guy that punts on defense. I'll load up and I'll look for the cheapest defense that can be okay. And this week, Jeff, you talked about it with the Chargers and Herbert. The Chiefs are 14th ranked defense. They might still be out there somewhere, or in DFS, you could use the Chiefs because even if Herbert plays, you and I know he's 100% mobile. He's going to be sitting in that pocket. And the Kansas City's defenses, they got some edge rushers. they can get to the quarterback. So those are two for me.
Yep, and they can shut down the run, which is what the Chargers have been doing that's how they were successful week 1, week 2.
Yep.
My big ones, I went Pittsburgh is my number one. Obvious reasons. They've got the best defense out there. I have very little, if any, faith, zero actually, in Anthony Richardson as a quarterback. So Pittsburgh seemed like it was going to be a no-brainer for me. And then I think that the Houston Texans defense is going to bounce back again against Jacksonville. I've waited over a year for Jacksonville's offense to kind of get it together. In the beginning of 2023, I said Jacksonville was going to, they were going to win the AFC. They were going to go 14-3. They had an easy schedule. Their offense is just, it's never been good. They have to make a change there, whether it's Doug Peterson or whoever. But I've got Houston against Jacksonville as well. So,
and Jeff, we let off a little bit with the Deshaun Watson question. You could take him out and put Lawrence in. Is he a QB1? Or will he be a QB1? I mean, how long? I mean, what his draft capital? You can't feel good about starting him in DFS or in redraft. Like he's
to start Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, will he be? He's QB 26. I mean, like at what point do we say he's not a QB1 anymore? I mean,
I think that door is slowly closing.
Yeah, I think
this week, if he can't do anything, because he does have a great opportunity. I almost put him on my sleepers, but he's just played he's not played well enough in order for me to want to do that.
Right.
But I almost had him on my sleepers, but even this week against Houston, as bad as Houston gave up points to Minnesota last week, and maybe this should be a high-scoring game, but Jacksonville hasn't shown that they can actually do anything.
They haven't, yeah.
Man, I think this is it. I think after week 4, if they go 0-4, which I think they will, I've never been high on Trevor Lawrence. He's always been, and everybody was always, he's top 5 or top 10. I think it's time to have a discussion about Trevor Lawrence. He's not the guy, and the fact that he made him the highest paid quarterback in the offseason at one point in time is ridiculous. But I think that happens after week 4. You have to make a change. Carolina did. They made a change after week 2.
I mean, at what point?
They were preemptive on it. Like, hey, we think it's the quarterback's fault. We're going to put in this guy.
Right.
And sure enough, this guy wins a game. So I think you have to start looking at, is Mac Jones a better quarterback? Or do we give Mac Jones at least a shot? Yeah.
Right. And you're 0-3 and 0-4. One team has made the playoffs at 0-4, and it was the 92 Chargers. So basically, if you're 0-3, obviously it's not a must win, but several teams have made, I think a handful of teams, I know this for a fact, a handful of teams have made the playoffs at 0-3, but only one, the 92 Chargers, made it at 0-4. So think about the company you're in. That's like trying to come down from 0-3 in a NHL or NBA series. Like 0-4 is you're pretty much done. So you're done.
So we got Kane Rice. You guys' thoughts on Brees and Sutton for Mixon and Reed? I'm concerned that Braylon Allen will only continue to eat into Brees's workload. I don't think so. I think it's a pretty balanced offense there, but look at where Brees Hall is right now. He's one of the top point getters.
He's QB5. Yeah. He's QB5, Jeff. So
running back 5.
Yeah. He's RB5 right now.
Yeah.
So he's RB5. In PPR, he's RB5.
So I hope he does. I'm not going to argue. I've got Braylon Allen, and I'm really hoping that he does eat into Brees Hall's workload, but I don't think he's going to. He had the one good week where he put up 8 points, and I think he had a receiving touchdown and maybe a 1-yard carry or something like that. I'm not sure. But no, I wouldn't do that trade.
No, I'm with you on
Brees
that.
And Sutton, and not go for Mixon, who's questionable still, and Reed, who may not be good unless Jordan Love comes back. So you're trading 2 guys that you know what they can do. One who's like a top echelon guy for a couple of guys who are injury prone.
Yep.
Mixon also has shown. Mixon also had a showout week 1 before the ankle injury. Yep, we talked about that one. And no one's eating into his workload. No, when he comes back, it'll just be Mixon.
Yeah.
But I still I'll still take Hall over Mixon any day of the week. If I have Dobbins and JMO and need a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2, who do you recommend? I have great receivers, but need more reliable running backs. Don't we all? I don't like JK with with Alt. Slater, Herbert injuries. Oh, okay. I just need to read that a little bit further. I don't like JK this week either. He was on one of my maybe stay away from guys.
Yep.
I have Dobbins and JMO and need a low end running back 1 or high end running back 2. Well, I guess it depends on who's still available in your league.
Yeah.
We mentioned Alexander Madison before. He might start taking some carries or some time, more time away from Zamir White. Rashad Johnson is a big one. Go out and get him right away if he's available. He's going to take some of the carries away from DeAndre Smith. Or Swift. Boy, off the top of my head, though, I can't think of any low-end 1, high-end running back 2s. Braylon Allen came up before. If he's still available in a league, I'd get him. You could plug him in. James Conner, no, I don't like James. Hang on. James Conner, I said to stay away from last week.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sleeper this week. I put him at. He's number 18 running back overall versus Washington. Yeah, you could plug in James Conner. I don't hate that play.
Volume play.
Yep. I'm 2-1 facing the highest scoring team, 3-0 this week. Good luck. I know how that feels, except for I'm 1-2. Allen's on my bench. I think that's a good play.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be bad. He's going to get carries against Denver. If my projection is right, I think the Jets kind of run away with this game, and you might see a little bit more Braylon Allen than Breece Hall.
Especially in the second half. Yeah, game script. Yep.
Should I start JMO, Mooney, Komet, or Romeo Doubs in the flex? I'll let you take this one.
Mooney, Dobbs, or Komet. I hate starting a tight end in a flex. That means you're starting 2 tight ends. So I would go Mooney.
I would say that too. Mooney, because Mooney against New Orleans, I think that game is going to be pretty high, and they should be covering Drake London pretty well.
He's been involved in the offense.
He's been getting a lot of receptions. So I'd go Mooney on that one as well. I wouldn't go with Doubs at all. I think that would be my last play. Yeah, in the flex. So Mooney in the flex, that's a good. I like that flex. Mooney, I would take that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it. Yep.
All right.
Good show, buddy.
We ran a little bit long again today,
that's
but I don't
right.
really care. I could do this for 4 hours.
Yeah, that was good stuff today. Yep.
All right. Hey, special thanks to everyone who submitted questions and chimed in. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. If you can let your fantasy football friends know that we do this every week around the same time, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Shawn with Apex Sports. Me, I run my own deal, www.downfieldread.com. You can find me pretty much anywhere. We're both on LinkedIn. We're both on Fantasy Turf Wars. You can find us both on LinkedIn.
Yep, and X.
I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I just started up. So realistically, please, the more people that you can get for us, follow us, get us some more stuff. My goal in doing this and having my own little thing that I do with Downfield Read is once I start to get enough subscribers here, then I can start to do contests and stuff. Then we can really have some fun with this, and we can have some drawings and all this other kind of stuff too. So if you enjoy the content, please, 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 can't say it enough. Find us, like us, follow us, share this stuff with your football fantasy friends. Unless you don't want them to know that inside scoop, then maybe you don't. But definitely follow us, please do. All right, I'm gonna take one more question, and then that's it. And then we're gonna call it a day from Chaka. Starting to panic on Alvin Kamara. Feel like he's a sell high right now. I wouldn't.
No,
I wouldn't sell Kamara right now.
You're going to have to get something back pretty good.
Yeah, you'd have to get something really, really good. And I mean,
especially in a PPR.
Two good plays. Yeah. If you're in a half PPR or a full PPR.
If you're in a standard, okay, but half point or a full point, no way.
Let's put it this way. With Kamara, you put a different running back or a inferior running back in that backfield. New Orleans is not where they're at right now.
No.
They don't score 40-plus points per game. They're not 2-0. They're not, they're not the thing. Kamara is kind of the heart of that offense. It's not Carr. Carr's a great complementary piece. Olave, Shaheed, they've got a lot of nice pieces in there. With his rib injury and Miller coming off IR, I still like Kamara. I don't think so. Yeah. I don't know, Shawn. What do you think, man?
You're holding tight on him. You're not. Yeah, he's an RB1.
He's a top 5 RB1.
Mm-hmm. And he's invaluable in PPR.
So, yeah, you'd have to get a lot back. A lot. And I'm talking like a running back who's maybe between 5 and 10, and then a very high wide receiver. Or if you struck out on your tight ends, to replace one of those, if you were banking on Mark Andrews, if you can get a Cole Kmet or something like that, or, it'd have to be a 2-for-1 deal for me to give up Palmer. And 2 good players.
Yeah, you have to get. Yeah, you have to get a lot. You have to get a lot back for him. I mean, if you sell high, you got to get high then.
Yeah. All right, my man.
Shawn, all right, my man. I'll see you. Take care. Thanks for having me on.
Anything else that you want to kind of plug in here?
No, I just want to check. Just please check check me out on X and then at Total Apex Sports. Yeah. I write the main slate DFS every week. Several single game slate DFS articles, and I write on the betting side as well. I do a weekly 3-team parlay, NFL and NCAA. So check me out on there. Every little view and click and follows helps.
Yep. Shawn's got some great stuff too. So please follow us both, and maybe we can get this thing off the board a little bit, and you can, you can say, hey, you were one of the first people, and we'll,
that's right.
Call out your name or whatever. Have a little banner in the background or something. Absolutely. All right, man.
Okay, buddy, take care.
North Carolina.
Right.
I'm glad to hear that the
hurricane
passed you guys, and happy birthday to your boy again.
I will.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.